The Veron store in Beverly Hills, with its glittering facade and elegant steps, had now become a symbol of luxury and exclusivity. James West, the founder of the brand, stood at the door, one hand pulling a well-worn cloth bag, the other gently pushing open the glass door. He wasn't dressed in a luxury suit, didn't wear shiny leather shoes, nor carry the expensive items people typically associate with the owner of a fashion empire. He wore only a pair of old jeans, a faded windbreaker, and worn-out sneakers. In his hand, he held the cloth bag with the old Veron logo, the logo he himself had designed from the very beginning. He just wanted to enter, as he did in the early days when he was building this empire, simply as a customer. However, when he reached the door, he was stopped. A staff member stood there, looked him up and down, and coldly said, "I'm sorry, sir. We don't serve walk-ins." Her voice was not harsh, but it cut like glass. James said nothing. He just stood there silently, looking at her, looking at the Veron sign, the name he had built. In that moment, he didn't feel anger for himself, but a deep sadness for what he had created. Veron was no longer a place that welcomed people like him. A system had been built, not to serve all, but only for a select group, the ones who could afford it and had social status. He remembered the early days when it was just him, poor credit cards and big dreams. He remembered the sleepless nights when he had to fold each garment by hand, preparing for his first collections. But now, a brand built on core values of welcome and inclusivity had become a place of discrimination, judging people by their appearance, by what they owned. James understood more than ever what this meant. This wasn't just a misguided store. It was a betrayal of the values he had spent his whole life building. The frustration didn't come from the employees' rejection, but from the realization that everything he had built, every step taken, every success achieved was now slipping away. What he thought was perfected had slowly turned into something he never wanted, an exclusive world for those who could afford it, not for those who love fashion, not for those who wanted to connect with the brand. As James's car rolled away from Beverly Hills, a suffocating feeling weighed heavily on his mind. Los Angeles rushed past the car windows, but James's mind was far away, lost in deep thoughts he couldn't ignore. This wasn't the first time he had noticed a shift in how people treated Veron, but today it was clearer than ever. This isn't just a case of a staff member making a mistake, James told himself. This is a system that started to discriminate, and I need to get to the bottom of it. As the car rolled into a nondescript building a few miles from Beverly Hills, James made the first call. Without much explanation, James gave a firm order. An investigation needed to be done. He needed to see firsthand what was going on within his own brand. Entering a minimalist room, James faced Mark Raines, a burly man with sharp eyes. Mark was the one who had handled everything, from security issues to counterfeit-related matters. James didn't need to say much. A single look at Mark's face told him that Mark understood how serious this was. "How was the shopping trip today?" Mark asked. "Eye-opening," James replied coldly. "But I've realized this isn't just a one-off incident." Along with Mark, Jenny Ramos, an IT specialist, stepped forward. She had been working at Beverly Hills for the past 3 weeks and didn't need to waste words. "This is worse than I thought," Jenny said without hesitation. "The appointment policy you've been using is completely unofficial, created by management to serve their VIP program." Jenny's words struck James like a cold slap. Everything was beginning to make sense. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate strategy, and now he had to make it clear to everyone. Jenny continued, pointing to the computer screen where data tables appeared, along with names tagged with labels like Platinum, Gold, and Standard. Platinum customers can walk right in," she explained. "Gold have to wait for an appointment, and Standard are turned away." James tilted his head, staring at the screen, his eyes glued to the numbers. "So what's the classification criteria?" he asked, his voice soft yet sharp. "It's not based on purchase history, not on loyalty," Jenny answered, her gaze direct. "It's based on appearance, the car they drive, the clothes they wear, even their zip code." James felt as though a bucket of cold water had been thrown over him. The discomfort spread through him like wildfire. He couldn't believe this was happening under the very name he had built. He wasn't just witnessing discrimination. He was seeing systemic exclusion. There was no place for the undeserving, and in that, he was the victim. "So, what are we doing to fix this?" James asked. "We've gathered all the data," Mark replied, his voice firm. "Emails, text messages, and backup copies. It can't be erased." James nodded, determination rising within him. "Good. Send this to the legal department. Prepare for a meeting. Everyone involved will be held accountable." He turned to Jenny, looking straight at her with a gaze that demanded certainty. "We'll do this publicly. No more secrets." An hour later, James and his team arrived in front of the Beverly Hills store. Despite the lack of any signage, the black SUVs glided in quietly, unnoticed. But as they entered the store, the atmosphere inside had completely changed. Inside Veron, everything remained still. The staff stood in place, but their enthusiasm was gone. The few customers, if any, seemed no longer welcomed. Standing in the luxurious room with its shiny furnishings, James could feel the coldness hanging in the air. He entered without making a sound, and the eyes of everyone in the store shifted from surprise to caution. Brittany Myers, the receptionist, didn't even look up when James passed by. Not a single glance in his direction. Only when she finally looked up did her cold stare sweep over James from head to toe. James could sense that something was wrong. She simply asked curtly, "Do you have an appointment?" With a cold smile, James replied, "No, I'm just passing through. I'm the founder of Veron, from the very beginning." The receptionist didn't react, only swiping her tablet screen indifferently. She didn't invite him in, just coldly said, "We're only serving customers with appointments now, only high-end clients." The sensation of being rejected hit James, but what pained him more was the realization that the very place he had built with so much effort no longer welcomed people like him, those who had helped create the name Veron. He said nothing more, just stood there, looking inside. The walls of display items no longer gave off the welcoming feeling he had once created. Instead, there were luxury areas reserved only for a select group, a chandelier from Milan, a lavish espresso bar, all meant for a specific kind of person. Suddenly, the truth dawned on him. Veron's path had not been a shift in business strategy. It had been a transformation into a system of exclusion, where people who didn't fit were pushed out. "This isn't a temporary mistake," James told himself. "This is a deliberate plan, and now I need to expose it." He turned around and left the store with a deep sense of realization that what he was witnessing was the beginning of something much bigger than just a failed retail strategy. Veron hadn't just lost its welcoming nature. It had started cultivating behaviors he never imagined having to face. As he got back in the car, James continued to reach out to his team. This wasn't just an issue at one store or with one employee. This was an issue for the entire empire. He hadn't built Veron just for it to become a brand exclusive to a small elite. It had to stop immediately. He couldn't let his company go down this path. He would expose everything, not just for himself, but for everyone who had been with Veron since the very beginning. When the car stopped in front of a building with no signage, James didn't waste time entering. This was a place no one knew about, not an official office, but the headquarters for the investigation he was about to begin. The door opened, revealing a dark room illuminated by glowing screens showing numbers, information, and emails James had never been authorized to access. Fluorescent lights dimly lit a group of people working hard to expose the secrets Veron had kept hidden for so long. His team was ready. Mark Raines, head of security, was waiting for him, his face stern. Next to him was Jenny Ramos, an experienced IT specialist who had been secretly working at the Beverly Hills store for the past 3 weeks. Jenny wasted no time, going straight to the point. "This is worse than you thought," Jenny said, her cold gaze meeting James's. "The by-appointment-only policy is completely unofficial, created by the management to serve their VIP program." James felt a chill run down his spine when he heard this. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a mistake made by a single employee. This was a deliberate plan. Jenny continued typing on the keyboard, and the screen displayed a long list. "This is the customer classification list. There are 3 tiers: Platinum, Gold, and Standard. Platinum customers can walk right in. Gold customers have to wait for an appointment, and Standard customers are turned away." "And what's the criteria for this classification?" James asked, his voice as cold as ice. "It's not based on purchases, not loyalty," Jenny replied. "It's based on appearance, the type of car they drive, the clothes they wear, even their zip code. All of this is tracked in the system." James couldn't believe what he was hearing. The store he had built from the ground up based on values of openness and inclusivity had been transformed into an instrument of social discrimination. The feeling of betrayal grew stronger within him. Mark stepped forward, his face serious. "This information was gathered by Brittany Myers, the receptionist today. She's the one responsible for classifying customers." A photo appeared on the screen. A man sitting in a cafe, holding a Veron bag, wearing an expensive tie and suit. "Do you recognize him?" Mark asked. "He's not a customer," James answered, narrowing his eyes. "That's right," Jenny said. "He's a hired model, coming in every week to take photos in the store as if he's shopping. But it's all a scam, a trick to build the store's image. Everything is fake." James felt his anger rising, but he kept it in check. This wasn't what he had built. Everything had been abused, and now he would expose it all. "Brittany and Chad Dawson are the masterminds," Jenny continued. "Not to mention that the store isn't just turning away customers. They're selling those customers to competitors. They receive commissions from rival stores." When James heard this, the numbers felt like heavy stones dropping into his chest. Everything was falling apart, and this was a betrayal he couldn't forgive. The room fell silent, except for the sound of typing and Mark's heavy sigh. Jenny pulled up another screen, showing hidden transactions and doctored records. "2 accounting books," she said. "One sent to the headquarters, one kept at the store. The profits from platinum customers have been inflated by up to 30%. James clenched his fists but said nothing. He knew it was time to act. All those responsible for this deceit would have to pay. He looked at the screen where names like Chad and Brittany were displayed clearly. "Send this information to the legal department," he ordered. "Prepare for a meeting. These people will answer for their actions." Determination had begun to burn in James's heart. This wasn't just a secret investigation anymore. This was about breaking everything down and rebuilding from scratch. He was ready to make it public, and this battle would be fought not behind closed doors, but in front of everyone. Just 1 hour after the meeting at the secret office, James stood before the main entrance of the Veron store in Beverly Hills, where luxury cars were still parked outside, and the dazzling facade and wealth had hidden the truth for far too long. But this time there would be no silence, no curtains concealing the truth. Everything was about to be exposed. 3 black SUVs pulled up in front of the door, the tension in the air palpable. Each step James took felt like a warning bell. No longer was he the flashy CEO. Now he entered as a man determined to unmask the lies. Everyone in the store stopped. The sounds of laughter and conversation faded. All eyes were now on him. The scene resembled a still image, where everyone was frozen in time. Brittany Myers, the receptionist, sat behind her desk, her hands still moving across her tablet screen, but her eyes never lifted. She only paused when she felt the cold gaze of James on her. "Hello, Brittany." James's voice was smooth, but filled with authority. "I have an appointment today." Brittany stood up quickly, her chair crashing into the wall behind her. A flicker of panic crossed her face, but she quickly regained her composure and said in a trembling voice, "Oh, Mr. West, we didn't know you were coming." "That's the problem," James replied, unfazed. "We don't need an appointment, do we? Just my presence is enough." The atmosphere froze. Whispers started circulating among the staff members standing around. James wasn't just the founder of Veron. He was the man who had seen the gradual shift in the empire he had created. That shift wasn't about growth. It was about the wrong decisions made by those he had trusted with responsibility. Once Brittany composed herself, James continued, "And I think it's time we meet Mr. Dawson, don't you?" As soon as Chad Dawson's name was mentioned, a wave of tension swept through the room. Chad emerged from his office, his face betraying his shock. He looked at James and then shifted his gaze to Brittany. "Hello, Mr. West." "What an honor," Chad forced a smile, but his voice lacked any confidence. "I didn't expect you to visit the store without prior notice." James didn't waste time on pleasantries. "We need to talk about the issues I just discovered," he said, his gaze cold as ice. The unofficial changes you and your team have implemented, the customer discrimination policies, the under-the-table deals with competitors, and most importantly, selling our customers to others. Everything needs to be cleared up right now. At the mention of Chad's name, not only Brittany but also the staff around them showed clear signs of panic. A few began to quietly step back, not wanting to get caught up in the situation. But James didn't stop. "We're not going to continue hiding things," he said. "I have all the evidence, emails, conversations, notes that you thought would never be uncovered." A large screen behind him lit up, showing emails, memos, and calls between the store's employees. It became clear to everyone in the room how serious the situation was. "Brittany, Chad," James continued, "you've not only sabotaged our brand, but you've also betrayed the very customers we've served for years. This needs to end immediately." Patricia from the legal department stepped forward. She spoke quietly but firmly. "We have enough information. This is commercial fraud, and legal action will be taken immediately. Both of you, Brittany and Chad, will be terminated right now. This is the final decision." The truth had been exposed, and with it, the end of a dark chapter in Veron's history. James stood, watching the stunned faces around him, then turned to look at Chad and Brittany, the people he had once trusted the most. "You used to work for a brand you helped build, but now you're nothing but traitors. You won't find anywhere to hide," James said, ordering security to escort them out. As he walked out of the store, James felt an odd sense of relief, but he knew this was only the beginning. An empire that had been misused needed to be reborn, and this time it would start with the very people he had once ignored. "We will rebuild everything from scratch, but this time, there will be no more discrimination," James thought. "This isn't just about reopening a store. This is about restoring trust, restoring dignity for all." Immediately after his confrontation with Chad and Brittany, James felt as if a huge weight had been lifted off his shoulders. But deep down, he knew that the real journey was just beginning. Veron had once been a symbol of elegance and luxury, but now it had to return to its roots. A brand that wasn't just for the wealthy, but for anyone who truly respected the value of human dignity. The Beverly Hills store reopened the next morning, with no velvet curtains separating customers, no distinctions between VIP clients and regular ones. James didn't need to do anything but watch the gradual changes unfold. He wasn't launching a big advertising campaign or coming up with flashy slogans. Instead, he simply stood back and observed. One morning, like any other, when sunlight streamed through the store's glass windows, customers walked in and immediately felt welcome. Each staff member, from Kevin to Lisa, greeted everyone with sincerity in their gestures and words. There were no more scrutinizing looks or invisible barriers. No matter where people came from or what they wore, they felt like they were a part of the Veron family. James walked around the display area, observing the changes happening around him. He saw the staff working not just with passion, but with a newfound pride. They no longer felt like soulless machines serving customers. They had realized that their work had the power to change the culture of the entire company. Meanwhile, customers felt the transformation. A young mother and her daughter were picking out a gift for the girl's graduation. She could see Kevin was helping, and without hesitation, they started chatting. The mother wasn't concerned about whether she fit some unspoken standard for the store. Kevin smiled and helped her find a perfect gift, making sure it matched her daughter's style and preferences. In that peaceful atmosphere, an older couple walked in, smiling at the sportswear on display. They didn't seem worried about prices or any judgments. Kevin walked over and assisted them in finding a gift for their grandchild. There was no measuring of their value based on the external factors. Everyone was simply welcomed and served as real people, not as clients to be categorized. James stood in a corner, silently watching. He felt an indescribable happiness and pride as he witnessed everything unfolding just as he had hoped. The store was no longer just a place for shopping. It had become a space for connection, respect, and equality. This was a store where no one felt like an outsider, where no one had to prove their worth based on appearance or financial status. At the coffee corner, customers were laughing and chatting with a barista, discussing their weekend plans. The atmosphere had completely shifted. It wasn't the same store where customers came in, bought something, and left without any connection to the staff. James stood nearby, quietly watching, feeling an overwhelming sense of satisfaction. Everything, no matter how small, had changed in the way he had always wanted. The store had returned to its original spirit, a place where everyone could walk in and feel respected. No one needed to worry about fitting some arbitrary standard. They just needed to step inside and know they'd be welcomed as part of the Varon family. In the fitting rooms, customers no longer felt judged or observed. They tried on clothes comfortably, without worrying about staff or whether they fit the store's image. James observed all of these moments with a deep sense of contentment. This was why he had fought so hard. It wasn't for profits or fame. It was because he wanted to create a brand where everyone could trust and feel they belonged. Looking out the window, James realized that everything seemed to have shifted, not just in the store, but within him. What had once been a challenge had now become a driving force, and he understood that these small changes would have a huge impact moving forward. But James also knew that the work wasn't done. This journey had only just begun. This store would no longer be a place for the privileged few. It would be a space where everyone, no matter their background, would feel like they truly belonged. Now, James wasn't just the founder and CEO of Varon. He was the leader of a new strategy, a new philosophy on how to work and serve, a philosophy where every employee and customer mattered. It was a philosophy of respect and dignity for all, regardless of their outward appearance or financial standing. The next morning, the atmosphere inside Varon Beverly Hills still felt fresh, as though everything had just been reborn. The sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow on the luxurious garments on display. But there was no longer a cold, distant feeling. Everything felt much more natural and welcoming. James walked into the store like any other customer, without fanfare, without an announcement. He could feel the change, not just in the design of the store, but in the attitude of every single person working there. Every employee seemed to be working with a renewed spirit. Kevin was helping a young woman choose an outfit for her first date. He wasn't rushed or scrutinizing the customer with a judgmental eye. He simply focused on helping her find the right look, listening to what she wanted, and offering honest advice. People no longer felt pressured by invisible standards. Each smile, every gesture, and every word showed respect and understanding. Even James could not help but notice the shift. When he saw customers, ranging from older individuals to college students, being greeted with warm smiles, he felt like there was nothing more he needed to do. The store had truly become a place where no one felt like a stranger, where no one had to prove their worth. In the coffee corner, a group of customers were chatting and laughing with a barista, discussing their plans for the weekend. The atmosphere had become light and friendly. This was a completely different place from before, when customers simply came in, made a purchase, and left without any real connection to the staff. James stood nearby, quietly observing, feeling an immense sense of contentment. Everything, even the smallest details, had changed in the way he had always envisioned. The store had returned to its original spirit, a place where everyone could step inside and feel valued. No one needed to worry about meeting any arbitrary standards. They just needed to walk through the door and know they would be greeted as part of the Varon family. At the fitting area, customers no longer felt watched or judged. They tried on clothes comfortably, without fear of being scrutinized by the staff or worrying if they fit the store's image. James watched all of this unfold with immense pride. This was the reason he had fought so hard. It wasn't for profits or fame, but because he wanted to create a brand that people could trust and feel connected to. Looking out the window, James realized that everything had changed, not just in the store, but within him as well. What had once been a struggle was now his driving force, and he understood that these small, everyday actions would create a lasting impact. But James also knew that the work wasn't finished. This journey had only just begun. This store would no longer be a place reserved for the privileged few. It would now be a space where anyone, regardless of their background, would feel like they truly belonged. Now, James wasn't just the founder and CEO of Varon. He was the leader of a new direction, a new philosophy on how to work and serve. A philosophy where every employee, every customer, and every individual was respected and valued. It was a philosophy rooted in equality, respect, and dignity for all, no matter their outward appearance or financial standing. The next morning, the atmosphere inside the Varon store in Beverly Hills still felt fresh, as if everything had been reborn. The sunlight gently streamed through the large windows, illuminating the luxurious garments on display without creating the cold, distant feeling that once existed. Everything felt more natural and inviting. James entered the store like any regular customer. No announcements, no fanfare. He could feel the shift, not just in the store's design, but in the attitude of everyone working there. Every employee seemed to be working with a renewed sense of purpose. Kevin was helping a young woman select an outfit for her first date. He wasn't rushing or evaluating the customer with a critical eye. Instead, he focused on finding the right fit for her, listening to her desires, and giving sincere advice. People no longer felt the pressure of invisible standards. Every smile, every gesture, and every word reflected respect and understanding. Even James couldn't help but notice the change. When he saw customers, from older individuals to young college students, being greeted with warm smiles, he felt there was nothing more he needed to do. The store had truly become a place where no one felt like an outsider, where no one had to prove their worth. In the coffee corner, a group of customers laughed and chatted with a barista, discussing their weekend plans. The atmosphere had completely transformed. It wasn't the same store where customers just came in, made a purchase, and left without any connection to the staff. James stood quietly nearby, feeling immense satisfaction. Every detail had changed in the way he had always hoped. The store had returned to its original spirit, a place where everyone could step inside and feel respected. No one needed to worry about fitting into an arbitrary standard. They simply needed to walk in and know they would be welcomed as part of the Veron family. In the fitting rooms, customers no longer felt watched or judged. They tried on clothes with ease, free from the worry of being scrutinized by staff or wondering if they fit the store's image. James observed all of these moments with deep contentment. This was why he had fought so hard. It wasn't about profits or fame. It was because he wanted to create a brand that everyone could trust and feel connected to. Looking out the window, James realized that everything had shifted, not just in the store, but within him. What had once been a challenge had now become his motivation, and he understood that these small changes would have a huge impact going forward. But James also knew that the work wasn't finished. This journey had only just begun. This store would no longer be an exclusive place for the wealthy few. It would be a space where anyone, regardless of background, would feel like they truly belonged. Now, James wasn't just the founder and CEO of Veron. He was the leader of a new vision, a new philosophy of how to work and serve, a philosophy where every employee, every customer, and every person was treated with respect and dignity. It was a philosophy grounded in equality, respect, and the belief that every individual, no matter their appearance or financial standing, deserved to be valued. Thank you for following this story with us. If you found this video inspiring or it helped you see life in a new light, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your feedback. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any exciting and meaningful videos in the future. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next videos. Wishing you strength and confidence on your journey.